Before tonight's stories begin, I need to warn you about something. What you're about to hear didn't happen in abandoned houses, dark forests, or creepy hotels. It all happened inside the one place people feel the safest, their own home. Every person in these stories lived alone, and each of them swore the same thing, that the first strange sign was so small, so easy to ignore, they didn't even think about it. A soft knock, a missing item, a tiny sound behind a closed door. But by the time they realized what was actually happening, it was already too late. So as you listen, pay attention to every detail, because the scariest part isn't what happened to them. The scariest part is realizing how easily it could happen to you. Now, turn off the lights if you haven't already. Let's begin. Story 1. The Man in the Crawl Space. I used to live alone in a small one-bedroom apartment on the third floor of a pretty old building. It wasn't in a bad neighborhood, but it wasn't amazing either. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, and living alone felt like a fresh start. At first, I loved the silence. I could hear the low hum of the fridge, the faint traffic outside, and sometimes my upstairs neighbor walking around. Nothing felt off for the first few weeks. Then small things started happening. It began with food. One day, I opened my fridge and noticed my leftovers were gone. I remember clearly that I had half a box of pizza left from the night before, and I was looking forward to eating it when I got home from work. But when I opened the fridge, the box was there, completely empty. I live alone. I don't really have friends over. No one else had a key except my landlord, an old man who lived on the first floor. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to think logically. I told myself, maybe I ate it last night and forgot. It sounded stupid, but I shrugged it off. A few days later, though, it happened again. This time it was my yogurt and some sliced turkey. I was sure I hadn't eaten them. I stood in front of the open fridge with this weird, sinking feeling. Someone was going into my apartment. I called my landlord that same day. I tried to sound calm, like I wasn't accusing him of anything. I said, "Hey, has anyone been in my apartment lately? Maintenance or anything?" He sounded confused and a little offended. No one's been inside. I would have told you. Why, is something wrong? I told him it was probably nothing. Maybe I was tired and forgetting, and we hung up. But that uneasy feeling didn't go away. A week later, I woke up in the middle of the night. It was around 3 a.m. I didn't know what woke me up at first, but then I heard it. A soft creaking sound from somewhere above me. Not from the upstairs neighbor. This was slower, more careful. My building had these weird low ceilings with panels that could be lifted, kind of like you'd see in an office. They hid pipes and wiring, but also created these long, narrow crawl spaces between floors. As I lay there, I heard another sound, like something shifting weight above my bedroom. A slow drag. Very faint, but there. I held my breath. My heart was pounding so hard I could almost hear it in my ears. I stared at the ceiling, at one of the panels that was slightly misaligned from the others. I had noticed it before, but never thought much of it. Now I couldn't stop staring at it. The sound stopped after maybe 10 seconds, but those 10 seconds felt like an hour. Every instinct in my body told me, do not move, do not make a sound. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and quietly opened the camera app, switching it to video. I zoomed in on the ceiling panel and started recording. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I wanted proof in case I wasn't imagining this. 3 more minutes went by. Nothing. No sounds, no movement. Feeling stupid and honestly more tired than scared at that point, I stopped recording and set my phone down. I told myself it was pipes or the building settling, some dumb explanation. Eventually, I fell back asleep. The next morning, I watched the video. For the first couple minutes, nothing happened. Just shaky footage of my ceiling in the dark. But near the end, something moved. You can see the edge of the panel shift just a little. Then you see it ease back into place, like someone gently pushing it from above. Not a sudden shift, not a creak from weight, a controlled movement, like someone was adjusting it. My throat went dry. I paused the video and replayed that moment over and over again, hoping I was misinterpreting it. I wasn't. That day, I went straight to the landlord again. This time, I didn't pretend everything was fine. I showed him the video. We ended up calling a maintenance guy to come check the crawl space above my unit and the hallway outside my door. The landlord, the maintenance guy, and I all stood in my apartment while the guy brought in a ladder. He climbed up, pushed the panel open, and shined his flashlight inside. "Jesus," he muttered. My skin went cold. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. He started passing things down to my landlord. A flattened pillow, a dirty blanket, 3 empty water bottles, a half-eaten bag of chips, an old phone charger. The landlord and I just stared at this pile building on my living room floor. Then, the maintenance guy spoke again, his voice more serious. "There's more back here. Looks like someone's been staying up here for a while." I felt like the floor was tilting. He climbed deeper into the crawl space, toward the area above my bedroom, guided by the flashlight beam. I heard him curse under his breath again. "There's a backpack, clothes, and..." Hold on. He came back to the opening, face pale. "There's a small hole right above your bedroom panel. Someone could have been watching you through it." I felt like I was going to throw up. We called the police. They searched the crawl space and the rest of the building, but whoever had been staying there was gone. They said there was no way to know how long he'd been there, watching me sleep, coming down when I was at work to eat my food and move around my apartment. The creepiest part? A few days later, I got a message on Instagram from a random account with no profile picture, no followers, no posts. It said, "You look peaceful when you finally sleep. Wish we could have had more nights." The account disappeared before I could even screenshot the profile. I moved out that same month. As far as I know, they never caught him.
Story 2. The voice on the other side of the door. About 2 years ago, I was living alone in a small rental house on the edge of the town surrounded by woods. I liked the isolation. I worked from home, I didn't go out much, and I enjoyed my quiet routines. The house had a long driveway and no close neighbors, just trees and a narrow, cracked road that led back toward the main part of town. It was late autumn, and it would get dark pretty early. Most nights, I'd finish work, make something simple for dinner, then watch YouTube or play games until I got tired. One night, it was a little after 11 p.m. when I heard the first knock. It was soft. 3 gentle taps on my front door. I froze. No one ever came to visit me unannounced. I wasn't expecting any packages, and I had no friends in that town. The knocking came again. Same pattern. 3 slow taps. I muted the TV and just sat there, listening. My heart was already beating faster, but I told myself it could be something normal. Maybe a lost driver or a neighbor with car trouble. I stood up, walked quietly to the hallway by the front door, and looked through the peephole. No one. Just the empty front porch, dimly lit by the weak yellow bulb above the door. The gravel driveway, dark trees behind it. I frowned and stood there watching for another minute. Nothing. I backed away from the door and was just about to go back to the living room when I heard it again. 3 slow knocks. My skin prickled. I checked the peephole again, this time more quickly. Still no one. I whispered to myself, okay, maybe the sound is from somewhere else. Pipes, maybe. I knew that didn't make sense, but I was trying to calm myself down. I was standing with my ear turned toward the door when I heard it. A voice. Very low, almost like a whisper pressed against the wood. "Hey, "Can you open the door?" I instantly stepped back. My chest felt tight. The voice was soft and sounded like it was trying not to be heard by anyone else, but the way it spoke, there was something off about it, like someone trying to sound friendly, but not doing a good job. I didn't answer. The voice came again, slightly clearer. "I'm just lost. My phone died. Can you help me?" I swallowed and forced myself to speak. "Who are you?" There was a long pause. Then a light tapping on the door, like fingers brushing along it. "Just open up, please." The way he said "please" made my stomach turn. There was no panic in his tone, no stress like you'd expect from someone really needing help. It sounded practiced, like he was reading a line. "I'm calling the police," I said, even though I hadn't moved toward my phone yet. He laughed. Not loud, just a quiet, ugly chuckle that made my heart jump. "You're not going to do that." I backed away from the door. "How do you know that?" I asked, my voice shaking. Another pause. Then, "I've been watching you. You never call anyone." I think that was the moment true fear hit me. This wasn't someone randomly choosing a house. This person knew I lived alone. He knew my habits. I grabbed my phone and actually called 911 that time. I told the dispatcher there was a man outside my door, that I lived out of town, that I was scared. As I was on the phone, the voice came again, sounding slightly annoyed now. "Come on, just open the door. I saw you walking around all week. Are you really going to be rude now?" The dispatcher told me to go to a room where I could lock the door and wait for the police. I went into my bedroom and locked it, then sat on the floor in the corner, my heart pounding, the phone pressed to my ear. While I waited, I could hear faint, irregular knocks from the front of the house. Sometimes they sounded like he was using his fist. Sometimes it was lighter, almost like he was dragging his fingers along the wood or the window. At one point, it sounded like he was at the side of the house, tapping on the wall right by my living room window. Then, he started saying my name, very softly. "Come on, your name. Open up. I just need to use your phone." He said it perfectly, like someone who had known me for years. Except I had no idea who he was. The dispatcher stayed on the line, asking if I recognized the voice, asking if he had tried the door handle. He hadn't. He never tried to break in. He just kept knocking and talking like he already knew a lot about me. The police finally arrived after what felt like an hour, but was probably closer to 15 minutes. I heard their car in the driveway, then loud knocks and voices yelling, "Police!" By the time they got to my door, the knocking outside had stopped. The man was gone. They searched around the house and the woods with flashlights, but didn't find anyone. No footprints they could clearly make out in the gravel, no sign of a car having just left. One of the officers asked, "Are you sure you imagined the voice? You said you couldn't see anyone." I didn't blame him for asking. If I hadn't heard it myself, I would have thought the same thing. But a week later, I got proof I wasn't crazy. I have a cheap little motion-activated camera near the side window of the house. I had totally forgotten about it that night because I was so focused on the door. I checked the footage. At around 11:12 p.m., you can see a long, thin figure walk up into frame. The video is grainy, but you can see enough. It's a man with a hood pulled low, standing almost pressed against my wall, right by the side window. You can't see his face, but you can see his mouth moving, like he's talking softly. There's a moment where he stops and stares directly at the camera, right at it, like he knew it was there. Then he slowly raises his hand and taps on the glass. The police took the video, but they never found him. I moved out 2 months later. Sometimes when I'm up late in my new apartment, still living alone, I'll think about that voice right on the other side of the door, that quiet, fake politeness, and that line, "I've been watching you. You never call anyone." He was right. I didn't. Not until that night.
Story 3. The Night Visitor in the Hallway. This story happened when I was living alone in a small studio on the 6th floor of an old building. The hallway lights were motion activated and always buzzed when they turned on, like a faint electric hum. You could always hear when someone was outside your door, lights clicking on, hums starting, footsteps on the thin carpet. It was weirdly comforting at first. I knew when people were coming and going. I could tell when my neighbors got home, when the delivery guy showed up, things like that. But after a while, I realized it also meant something else. If those lights turned on at odd hours and no one knocked, you'd just know someone was out there. It started on a Sunday night. I remember because I had work the next morning and I was trying to fall asleep early. I turned off my lights around 11 p.m. and lay there in the dark, scrolling through my phone. That's when I heard it. Click. The hallway light, that faint buzz. I waited for a knock. Nothing. I stared at my door. It was just a few feet away from my bed, small studio life. I could see the thin strip of light under it glow faintly. The light stayed on for maybe 15 seconds, then clicked off. I listened for footsteps leaving. Nothing. I told myself someone just walked past quickly and I didn't hear their steps because I was distracted. But it still bothered me. The next night, it happened again. This time, it was closer to 2 a.m. I woke up to that same sound. Click. Buzz. The light was on outside my door again. Once more, no knock, no footsteps. Just silence. I sat up slowly, my eyes fixed on the door. I don't know why, but I whispered, "Hello?" even though I knew they couldn't hear me through the door. After a few seconds, the light turned off. This continued for almost a week. Sometimes at midnight, sometimes at 3 or 4 in the morning. The hallway light would switch on, stay on just long enough to make my heart race, then switch off. I asked my neighbor across the hall if she'd noticed anything weird. She shook her head and said she sleeps with earplugs and a fan on high, so she never hears anything. The building was old, the wiring was probably bad, I told myself. Maybe the sensors were malfunctioning. Then, one night, it changed. It was a Thursday around 1:30 a.m. I woke up not from the sound of the light, but from this strange feeling that someone was watching me. I sat up and looked at the door. The light outside was already on. I hadn't heard it click this time, but the strip of light under my door was there, bright. I held my breath and listened. That's when I heard it. Slow breathing. Not mine. Very faint, on the other side of the door, like someone was standing inches away from it, facing in. My whole body went cold. I watched that strip of light like it would suddenly show me a shadow, a pair of feet, something. I slid quietly out of bed and grabbed the closest thing I had to a weapon, a metal water bottle. It sounds stupid, but it felt better than nothing. I walked closer to the door, my bare feet making almost no sound on the floor. The breathing continued, slow and steady. Whoever was out there was standing perfectly still. I looked through the peephole. At first, all I saw was the hallway, the faded carpet, the pale walls, and the opposite door with my neighbor's little welcome mat. Then I realized why. The person was too close to my door for me to see them. They were standing off to the side. I could feel my pulse in my neck. My instinct screamed at me not to say anything, not to let them know I knew they were there. So I just stood there,
watching through the peephole, listening. After what felt like a full minute, the breathing stopped. I saw a hand slide slowly into view from the edge of the peephole. Long, feathery fingers, dirty nails. They moved along my door frame like they were feeling it. Then the hand dropped. The light turned off. I heard nothing else. I barely slept the rest of the night. The next morning, I went straight to the building manager and asked if we could check camera footage. He told me there was only one camera on our floor, and it covered the elevator and the middle of the hallway, not my exact door. Still, we checked. At 1:31 a.m., the hallway lights flicked on. The motion-activated system was clearly working. From the right side of the frame, near the stairwell door, a figure stepped into view. Tall, thin, wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled all the way up. He walked down the hall slowly, then right out of frame in the direction of my door. And then, nothing. The camera didn't show my door, just that he never came back into frame. The light turned off after about 20 seconds. No sign of him leaving. The manager shrugged and said it was probably some kid messing around, and said he'd talk to the security company about maybe adding another camera. That was it. For a few days, nothing happened. I started to relax, thinking it was over. Then, one night, I made a mistake. I forgot to lock my door. I didn't realize it until later when I went to tell this story, but that night I just came home, dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, made dinner, got in bed, and never turned the deadbolt. That night, I woke up again. It was 3:04 a.m. I remember because my phone screen was the only light in the room. I woke up to the feeling of someone standing near me. There was no sound of the hallway light this time. No click, no buzz. Instead, there was the softest sound of weight shifting on the floor beside my bed. I opened my eyes and saw a shape standing in the dark between my bed and the door. Tall, thin, still. My throat closed up. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. We just stayed there in the dark, my eyes slowly adjusting. I could make out the faint outline of a hood over his head. Then, I heard it. That same slow breathing I heard outside my door, except now it was in my room, right next to me. He whispered so quietly I almost thought I imagined it. "I knew you'd forget." That snapped me out of it. I screamed loud. I rolled off the other side of the bed and scrambled for the door to the hallway, not the front door, but the bathroom. I slammed it shut and locked it, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone as I dialed 911. While I was on the phone with the operator, I heard my front door open and slam shut. He ran. By the time the police came, he was long gone. The only sign he'd even been there was my front door, still slightly open, and a faint, dirty smudge on the inside handle. The officers checked the building, but nothing. No cameras that caught his face, no one who recognized him. I moved out within the month. I still live alone now, but in a completely different city. And now, no matter how tired I am, no matter how safe I feel, I always check my door 3 times before I go to bed. Sometimes I even wake up in the middle of the night just to check it again. People think living alone is peaceful, and it can be, until you realize that someone else knows you live alone, and they're counting on it. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.